Time now for this week's Health Matters. Paul Critz, along with physician assistant Lynn Szabo. And I guess it was only a matter of time before we got around to this topic. So you want to hip everybody to what we're discussing today?
Yeah, we might have come a little late to the table. But anyway, it's about the murder of Brian Thompson, who was the CEO of UnitedHealthcare. And as lots of people know by now, was killed by a lone gunman on the streets of New York. And the guy has been apprehended. Mm-hmm. So, but he was on the run for about 3 days.
So I got to ask, I mean, what is your take on all of this? And does it differ from any of the millions of takes that are online that everybody seems to have regarding the life and death of Brian Thompson?
Well, my take is obviously the death of an individual, and especially a murder, is a sad thing. And I don't want to take anything away from his humanity, but I wonder about his humanity.
It's kind of, but at the same time, we're going to be discussing his, well, yeah.
Right. I don't have much sympathy for him because his role as a leader of a particularly odious insurance company during a particularly awful time when they developed a profoundly terrible skill that hurt a lot of people that they are apparently oblivious to.
Wow. Yeah, it's true.
So there you go. So insurance in general isn't really good for your health because a number of people are driven to bankruptcy from medical debt.
Well, and just the whole thing that underlying what insurance does to medical care is it makes it much more of a money thing, and
right.
Then because it's
transactional, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. That's the word for it, transactional. And then on top of it, making it a transactional sort of thing like that, it also becomes its own sort of bubble. It's like in a bubble, this economic bubble, and it can just ramp up the costs as far as, as the quote unquote market could take. And it's also its own market. It's a strange sort. It's almost like the defense industry and a lot of the inbred kind of economics of it.
I guess so, but I think there's more breaks on costs than you would think, but not as many as there probably should be. But the particular thing with insurance is that it doesn't pay for care. You're talking about the cost of care, and I'm talking about insurance that doesn't pay for care. That's necessary.
Sure, but the whole reason that has become an issue that we have to discuss and we have to niggle and go back and forth about the cost of care is because we've built a system in which care has a cost.
I know.
And that cost can go up and up and up. In a vacuum, in a sense, in a way. Because if you take what our costs are in relation to the rest of the world, I mean, we're far and away much more expensive for the same level of things.
Outcomes.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So, yeah.
Like totally.
So it's, I don't know.
But online I saw people, I guess, really content with the idea that doctors make, $30K an hour, which happens nowhere.
So explain to me that whole sentence. What do you mean? You saw online?
So I saw unsubstantiated stuff flying around on the internet in the comments section where people were blaming doctors for the problem with healthcare because they charge too much.
Oh, gotcha.
And the particular number was $30,000 an hour. Of course, they're all laughing.
That's yeah.
So that's not really the case.
At 3-4 hours work, I'm done for the year.
Yeah,
that'd be nice.
So the thing people also die lacking care. That's in fact 68,000 estimated yearly deaths from lack of care. It's hard to tear that apart, though, and say, is that because they don't have insurance or because their hospital's too far away or because, et cetera, et cetera. But this guy was in charge of an organization called UnitedHealthcare, and they, in particular, deny 1/3 of their claims, which is higher than a national average of 16%. So 16% denial rate at Joe Average Insurance Company, but these guys deny 1/3. And what they're using AI to deny, to decide what to deny. And the problem with that is not only are they denying more, but they also can do it faster.
Right.
And
right.
I think that's appalling.
That also has a little kind of moral prophylaxis on it, too, when you can sit back and kind of throw your hands up and go, oh, hey, it's the algorithm.
Right. And so are we really content in our dealings with AI to believe algorithms? They're not always right.
Well, no, and they're making human decisions in an automatic, robotic way. So maybe that just holds,
Right,
just as a
are.
premise, is where we should cut
Right.
that off.
And
Yeah,
they're not making medical decisions about
no.
medical care.
they're solving for X, and X is a dollar sign. Actually,
Right,
now in this
exactly.
instance, yeah.
But this guy was, at the helm when this started to happen. So this was a program that he had some leadership skin in the game for. And they made $280 billion last year and covered 50 million people.
Wow.
So here's what I think is weird. When I read the number that he was reportedly paid $10 million in 2021, the first thing I thought of is, why is he making so little?
That's a little kind of bonus for this kind of money, huh? Right? If
That's his salary.
Yeah.
But that doesn't count.
So not a bonus. That's his base salary?
That's his base salary.
Okay.
And so,
Well, people don't usually talk, when they talk about CEOs, they don't usually talk about base salary so much as they do bonuses, because typically that number is so much bigger,
so
right?
that number wasn't really reported. So I think that one's out there. And apparently his organization had problems with insider trading. So somebody did a $120 million stock dump. Well, the company was being federally investigated for antitrust issues.
Wow.
So what that tells me is that there's a possibility that $10 million is for that man's personal salary is really a gross underestimate.
Right. There's a lot more profit taking going on in this company. And the CEO would probably not just get, here's your little... That's minimum wage for CEOs.
If he
right?
ushered in this amount of savings of money, his contract probably rewarded him for that.
Right.
I'm guessing, and I think that's appalling.
Because that incentivizes that incentive, as it should, and people will argue as it should in the capitalistic system with any business. It incentivizes profits, which then are passed down to shareholders, and so everybody makes money and everybody's happy. But we're talking about people's lives in the healthcare system. They're not making shoes.
Amount of money.
Yes. For anything.
This is terrible. Like $10 million, in my life would be like crazy huge.
Yeah,
I can't even think of it. But the first thing I thought of with this guy is, well, why so little?
Yeah.
There's something weird going on. Why so little? Yeah.
Wow.
So I think he actually makes a ton more money than we know. Well, not anymore.
Well, made. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I was also struck by his wife, who talked about some threats that had been made to him by individuals due to what they call a lack of coverage.
Okay.
And I thought that was particularly insensitive. Because
So why did you put that in quotes in that line in your notes here?
Because that's what she said.
Oh, okay.
Lack of coverage. And I think that's an interesting perspective. So the first thing I thought about that was how Marie Antoinette let them eat cake. These people are not, there's a difference in what coverage, a difference of viewpoint of what coverage should be. And so people who think that they have health insurance and they have let's say a catastrophic illness, and maybe there's a particular med or a procedure or a test that they need, they don't perceive that as lack of coverage.
What if they're not able to get that test or medicine or something? Okay,
right. They get mad because it's very personal, and it's. I think it's incredibly unfair, and I think a lot of the people involved in the insurance company don't get how these decisions affect people.
Yeah. No.
I think that's very common in medicine in general. On a mundane level, like your provider decides to go to a conference and is out for 2 days, that has an effect on how people can schedule appointments and what availability is and who can cover for him, which most of the time is nobody. And so I think this is the same kind of thing, only on a gross scale. People make a decision that's a barrier to care, and then they move on and think
Well, yeah,
it's out of their life.
And
you know?
because this is such a George Carlin moment, right? This is the
Right.
lack of coverage is, first off, it's lack of coverage is a passive construction, so there's no subject there to take any sort of moral responsibility for the sentiment. Secondly, that is just that kind of it's an antiseptic phrase that is meant to like take the humanity in the issue out, the issue of the humanity out of the issue. Hold on a sec. I mean, so you're absolutely right putting that in quotes, because that needs to be pointed out that this was an actual phrase in a very human sort of situation with a human tragedy across the board, including this guy and his wife who says this.
And the person who shot him.
And the person, yeah, exactly.
Because there's a
exactly.
backstory there, no pun intended, but apparently he has a chronic pain issue.
Oh, the back issue. Okay.
And
Yeah.
he was denied some kind of medical care. I don't know if it was by this insurance company or if he just picked this guy because it's particularly odious.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. So big surprise. His death is not getting much sympathy online, and I think that surprises people. I think the oligarchy's shocked.
That's what I want to say. I don't think it surprises people. I think it surprises the oligarchy. And I think it surprises the media, too. That's another big thing. And I don't know why that is. The media is just all up, and I can't believe this is going. And they're doing story. And, well, I guess it fits what the media would do. They're doing stories about all of this, and they're having to shut down the comments on their posts and their articles and their segments that they put online. And I don't know. It seems there's a disconnect there too.
Yeah, weird disconnect between the death of the CEO and the death of way more people from lack of access to care and
Right.
barriers to care.
Right.
Way more people.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite comments I've seen on all these stories is somebody inevitably goes, people are shot in the streets of New York City every day.
Right. But not rich white guys.
Why should I care about this guy?
Not the oligarchy.
Yeah, exactly. The oligarchy is clutching the pearls at this. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm surprised it didn't happen sooner, because of the amount of rage that people have, and they yell at us in the exam room or in the clinic because somehow they think we didn't try hard enough for, when they call the insurance company, say to get an MRI for their back pain, that they want like immediately, but they have to go through a process that involves like x-rays, which are not really medically necessary but cheaper, and then physical therapy, which is hard to get in this community. There's definitely a hold on the amount of people they can take at one time, and they're
Right.
really saturated. So they blame the provider. The person that they're face to face with that they can yell at is the provider. So when they call the insurance company to themselves, because I tell them all this, I know this is pointless, but this is what your insurance company wants us to do. And I say this a lot. Remember, they're making financial decisions, not medical decisions, not ethical decisions. And so they call up the insurance company just to make sure that I'm telling them
that
the
you're
truth.
not- yeah.
And what they hear from the poor beleaguered lady at the, on the other end of the line is, oh, there'd be no problem if your provider would just call one of our peer providers and,
What are they telling him then? What's that mean?
they're telling them that it is your provider's fault.
Yeah.
Because they haven't gone this extra step.
And does that extra step ever amount to anything?
No. It's not even doable
What is it they're advising? What is it they're telling them to have you do?
to call their peer physician.
Uh-huh.
It's usually a physician. It's usually somebody not in clinical practice. It's usually an administrative kind of medical person. I've never had it be a nurse practitioner or say a PA. I have talked to a pharmacy student before making life and death decisions on a particular on a certain drug.
A pharmacy student?
Pharmacy student was a summer job for him.
Wow. And what was he like in a doctorate, in a pharmaceutical doctorate, in the pharmacology doctorate? Because my daughter's in that right now, and I imagine my 26-year-old daughter who's working on a PhD in a lab setting, a very specific lab setting in a pharmaceutical PhD, answering a question about life and death, about a human's life and death.
Yeah, which is not a clinical role at all.
Wow.
So,
So what are you supposed to do? Justify what you want to have happen?
So let me tell you, first of all, it's really hard to do in real life.
How so?
So number one, providers are insanely busy. Number two,
are you expected to sit for a long time on the phone and wait for this person?
I have been on hold when I was working in the Castro, and most of those guys were on Medi-Cal, actually. By the time they were really sick, I was on hold multiple hours.
Wow.
Okay, so super disrespectful of the provider's ability to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I did it recently to get an MRI of his shoulder on this woman who definitely she had significant rotator cuff injury. She had a positive exam. She had a history that suggested it. And then I got the x-ray, and there was really nothing on the x-ray that explained her symptoms, because rotator cuffs are soft tissue injuries and not bony.
They're not going to show up on
Not going to show up. Needed an MRI. She did the physical therapy. Her physical therapist said she needed an MRI. So I brought her in, had an extra appointment that she didn't understand at first, to do a meticulous exam and documentation. I wrote up this thing of beauty, that I probably haven't written since I was in school. I would have gotten an A on it. I looked up references. I looked up risk calculators.
Precedents.
Precedents. And I crafted this beautiful note, and then, I called, and they couldn't talk to me right then, and so I had to be pulled out of care. Weirdly, it was her appointment for another.
It was the same patient.
Wow. Okay. I'm going to go yell at your insurance company. And she's like, "Go team!" And the provider I talked to, after we were on hold for 40 minutes, actually. So I had a minion, on hold. So minions are great people. No disrespect.
Especially no.
Yeah, she was pivotal in this. She hadn't read the chart note. They denied it without reading any of the information I sent.
So
I was talking to a physician.
Let me understand this right. So you sent that. You sent this. Subsequently, you have to wait online.
Right.
You have to wait on the phone.
Right.
You get to the person who hasn't even bothered to look at what you sent them.
Yeah.
How could they justify denying it without reading the note that you sent them? They don't have to.
They don't have to.
Wow.
And she goes, well, does her shoulder hurt? And I'm like, yes, her shoulder hurts. That's the whole reason for this,
Wow.
And then she wasn't interested in hearing findings of exam. She wasn't interested in hearing x-ray, physical therapy, risk calculator, any of my references. She said, well, if her shoulder hurts, let's do it. And if I could have reached into the phone.
I don't understand. So you got what you wanted?
I got what I wanted.
Okay.
But do you see how many barriers to care are in that?
Well, sure, but none of them were actual barriers to care in this instance.
In the end, except for time.
Yeah.
Because we did
time and the arbitrariness of the fact that if you'd gotten somebody else on another day in a different situation, there's no reason why you couldn't have gotten an entirely different answer.
Was a physician, but not clinical, because she didn't. I'm going, okay, well, it's a positive X sign and a positive Y sign, and she goes, don't tell me that. I don't know what any of that means. And I'm like, why are you making this decision?
Okay, well, that's
so that points out the other thing. You have people making, again, financial decisions, not medical decisions, not ethical decisions.
And it sounds like the attempt to make it even look like it's a medical decision by having this process that you go through is really just wallpapering.
And they make it sound so like a jovial curbside. Just have your provider call, one of our amazing doctors.
Doctors are standing by. When have you ever heard that?
They call them peer counselors.
Peer counselors. That's so that they don't actually have to be doctors?
Yeah.
That's wow.
So, the next, so the woman got her MRI, but I felt like
How much time did you put into the report?
About 40 minutes.
So 40 minutes coupled with another 40 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Plus 3 visits.
Okay. So what?
And those are like, let's be optimistic, call them 20 minutes each.
Okay, so 3 hours, then
plus
3 plus
X-ray
hours.
plus physical therapy, 6 weeks of physical therapy.
Okay, now we're getting beyond. I'm not trying to get to the physical.
Time?
I'm going. How much time did you put into getting the information together to present to this person, and then waiting to present this information to this person? So all that time is wasted.
Right.
That's the real waste to me. Is your time, your minions' time, the time that could have been spent at Open Door helping other people.
Right.
Wow. Yeah.
Right. Plus, this woman's in pain.
Yeah.
She was in pain for about 6 months. The totality of, and guess what? She had a pretty significant rotator cuff injury, multiple tendons, and is now, her next hurdle is to get to the surgeon.
Wow.
So this is ridiculous, and it's not a real process. So when your insurance company, when you call your insurance company because you're mad they didn't do an MRI, like they do on Michael Jordan or did on Michael Jordan, like seconds after the injury, and you're told by the insurance company, no problem, you just have your provider call. That's not super possible, and it's pointless.
Yeah. And it isn't no problem at the very least.
Right. Yeah. And then the other thing about it is that this is taking time away from families with sick kids, or being able to squeeze that person in, during lunch hour, stuff like that. And providers burn out and they don't want to. This is not what they signed on for.
Yeah, no, exactly. This is not. This isn't. This is a whole different level of bureaucracy, bureaucratic middle person sort of going on here. Yeah.
So every medication or diagnostic test I order goes through an evaluation by non-medical people most of the time, and many are denied or they're downsized. And here's a perfect example. We've talked about postcoital contraception before and why Plan B doesn't work for women with body mass index over 27, I think it is now, which is most of Del Norte. And Ella is the preferred, but Ella costs $20. And then Plan B costs $2 or free. Actually, a lot of Plan B, it was brought into Del Norte under direct relief, which I'm not really certain what that is, but it's free to the clinics.
Oh, wow.
And so the pharmacist looks at the prescription Ella I've written, and there's this woman in front of him who is, let's say, 200 pounds. And so let's say body mass index 30. Okay, that is like small for the average patient.
That's Is that quota? I mean, that's. I'm trying to remember what the designations are on the BMI, but it's like there's overweight, and that's a very little
barely
bit.
Into obese.
But obese is like. Not what you think of as obese. Obese is like 10 pounds overweight or something.
It kind of looks
really,
normal.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, and then they call me back. So there's a delay, and there's a woman whose timer is clicking.
Yeah.
And they say it's not. This costs $20. We want you to go with the free to $2 one. And I'm like, are you advising me to do malpractice? I know it won't work. I have data that prove that it won't work. Don't even talk to me. This is a waste of time.
Do you have any recourse in a situation like that?
Yeah. So what I did, actually, with a lot of help from other people at UHS, was I got the house brand of postcoital contraception to be Ella. No excuses.
Oh, we don't care. We don't carry Plan B regardless. Wow.
Yeah. But Open Door still needs to learn that lesson because their Ella is like they're giving you their last 5 cents. They're like, oh,
here you go.
So
make sure it's needed.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Why again are you using Plan B? Because it doesn't work.
Oh my God.
So we shouldn't have to make decisions like that. We shouldn't be, I guess, so closely monitored by people who have no idea what the intricacies are, and also really they're not making medical decisions, although they are,
because
they're making financial ones.
Yeah, right, exactly. But there are times, I imagine too, just being a scientist and working the scientific method, you're going to do a test, perform a test on something, on a situation, on a person, on a
right,
and in the hopes that it's going to come back negative.
Right.
So, I mean, do they look at something like that and go, well, that's wasted. It didn't prove anything.
Yes, but we call that rule out lawsuit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
CYA.
Yeah.
But no, that's obviously something that you have to do regularly just to eliminate things and make sure you're looking at.
Right. Science is proving yourself wrong.
Right.
And yeah, there's a lot of that. But I don't know. Yeah. I think they underestimated the amount of fury that they have to insurance companies. Do I think it's going to change insurance companies? No, because greed is the thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's just going to increase security.
It's more of a, yeah.
They're gonna. If I was a CEO of an insurance company, I would be definitely increasing security for me and my family.
I think that's been a thing I've seen in the news too. They've been upticks and people and these sorts of folks.
So they can spend money on that.
Yeah.
But they can't spend money on what their prime directive is.
They're spending. Well, their prime directive is making a profit.
Money. Yeah. I think it should be providing care.
Right. Exactly. Right. So what about you, What are your personal feelings about Brian, what's his name, Thompson?
From what vantage point?
Well, that's just as a I know. Is it something that you can look at and just kind of go, I feel this way, or do you have to look at?
I think he represents a really, really horrible way of treating people, and I believe that people stand in front of God, and I think there might be a little bit of that going on, but I don't presume to know.
No. Okay.
Do I feel sorry for his kids and his family? Yeah, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But
kind of would have felt a little sorry for him even before too, when you found out who their dad was and what he did. Honestly.
Yes. Yeah.
I would have been, gee, that's too bad, you know?
Yeah, but I don't think they think about that long, because he makes a lot of money. They're probably going to really nice schools and, and they've got trust funds and all kinds of stuff.
I don't know. We're making a lot of assumptions. They might have been a bunch of, hippies living in there in New York.
Living on God's credit card.
I know. How
very humble.
I heard what I was saying. Yeah. Yes. So yes, it is a tragedy. It is sad, but it is indicative of so many things, and the media coverage is maddening, and how we're all supposed to be up in arms about this oligarch who was killed down by somebody who with actual skin in the game. So
I feel sorry for the kid.
Yeah.
I can understand why somebody would be so frustrated at that age and maybe that gender, maybe not, to actually plan this out and think he was going to get away with it. Yeah. I also feel a little sorry for the person who turned him in, because I'm not sure that's really the right thing to do.
No.
But McDonald's is weird. I don't go there anymore.
Ever since they took the grimace away. All right. Well, okay, Lynn, thank you very much. This was eye-opening. I didn't think there was more to be said about all of this after the couple of weeks this has been going
There's
on.
Always the Del Norte perspective.
There's always the Del, and hearing your perspective.
Affect our care here.
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't doctors come here? That might be part of it.
Might be. Right on.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Lynn. Any thoughts about next week's Health Matters? We're into the Christmas. Is there a holiday? Can we do a Christmas show? Is there a Christmas Health Matters we could do?
Depression associations, family holidays. No, I actually want to talk a little bit about new programs that are coming into CR, and I have one of my young PA wannabe mentees is going to interview a friend of mine who's bringing a new exciting program to CR. So I don't know if it'll happen this week because it's a lot of moving parts, but should be exciting when it does.
All right. Well, we will look forward to hearing that when it does happen. And regardless, we'll talk next week for the next Health Matters.
All righty.